Great. So we've just gone live now. So apologies for the latecomers. This is our first premiere episode of the Launch No Code podcast. I'm Natalie Furnest, your host, and I'm here with Mariam, co-founder of Softer.io, to talk about her experience in the creator economy. Mariam, welcome.
Thanks, Natalie. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. So first of all, just for some of the users and watchers who aren't 100% sure of what Softer is and what you're doing in the space, can you give us a little bit of an overview about you and what Softer.io is?
Of course. So Software is an easy-to-use no-code platform that lets anyone without tech background build websites, web apps, and portals from Airtable using Airtable as a backend within 10 minutes. There's no learning curve, no designer or coding skills required. And at the moment with Software, people build things like communities, marketplaces, paid online courses, portals, and a lot more other things.
Amazing. Yeah, it sounds like such a creative app that anyone can use. So who is it mainly targeted at the minute?
So there are really different types of users we have, but there are some key groups that are emerging at the moment. And one of the key groups is really creators, makers, indie hackers, building side businesses, and just building different projects and really experimenting with different ideas. And those are the people who are really eager to be in the space, to try out different tools, and really the ones who are moving the entire no-code space and the movement forward.
Wonderful. Now, Mariam, you're one of the founders of Softer. I'm so interested to learn, how did you come up with this idea? Where did it come from?
Yeah, interesting. Interestingly enough, I have had no experience with any of the no-code tools, as you can imagine, just because I have been an engineer myself prior to starting Software, and I didn't even know there's Wix or the likes to build a website. I mean, if I needed something, I would just go ahead and build it myself. So yeah, basically the reason we started Software in the first place was out of our own frustration, just because in every other company, together with my co-founder we worked for, we just kept building the same things over and over. We kept building the same functionality like authentication, payments, messaging, all of that. And on the other hand, over the past years, we have also been leading product and tech teams and just hiring software engineers and just seeing the firsthand the scarcity of engineering talent, which is just crazy. And then the idea came, why not have a platform where all of this repetitive functionality is offered as pre-built functionality or building blocks. And then on top, companies or individuals can build what's unique to their business. That's really how we started Software in the first place. And then on the other hand, while being really in the startup ecosystem, like exploring and talking to lots of different people, we just figured there are so many people who have like amazing ideas. However, they are non-technical. Most of the time, every other meetup we participated, they were looking for a tech co-founder, and they either just gave up or they would have to hire an agency or someone external to build an idea, which might just very often fail just because they haven't validated anything, right? So that's where we also came kind of the more creator side of things and understood that there's also a huge demand on an individual level for people to really get into tech, to be able to use tech, to really build tech instead of just being a user. And that's also the angle we really left. And we wanted to empower more of these types of people to really start their own businesses.
Great. So what I'm hearing there is that it was almost like part self-frustration. So as a developer or an engineer, you wanted to build technologies, but you were kind of a bit frustrated you had to do it over and over again. I suppose it's like what a no-coder would say is, having to do an Excel spreadsheet over and over again. You just want to have that modular approach. You want to have the algorithms already pre-written, so you can almost drag and drop modules and reuse them again. And yeah, I think
exactly.
That's a great point. You're providing the technical co-founder, but through a product rather than a person for these creators. And I'm one of them. So I'm not a programmer, I'm not an engineer, but I have loved being part of this no code creator economy, because suddenly we have an array of tools that pretty much means that we can build anything, which is
Exactly.
just so exciting. So I'm going to move a little bit more to talk about you and your co-founder. How did you guys meet each other? How did that all start?
Sure. Well, we have been working previously back in Armenia, and we have worked for quite a while there, and also we have worked in Germany, and we also happen to be wife and husband, and we just have seen we just have seen the same issue in all of the different companies both of us worked for, and in similar roles, and it just at some point made so much sense. I also did try to work, joined an incubator, accelerator in the beginning, tried experimenting with different ideas. But as you know, it's really difficult to have a really strong team, and just start a business with someone. And we just figured at some point that we are really the strongest team that we can be, and that's how we basically came together and decided to start software.
Wow, I had no idea that you were a husband and wife. So we've had a question from one of our viewers on YouTube, who's actually, thank you so much. First of all, I'm just going to go to the producer just to find out what your name is. So one of our YouTube viewers wants to know, Mariam, have you had any interest from some larger organizations? Because we talk a lot about the creator economy. We talk about serving the individual, providing almost that technical co-founder to non-technical creators. But what about the larger companies? What about the SMEs and the social enterprises? What's going on in that space?
Yeah, for sure. So it really depends on the type of company. As companies grow bigger and bigger, they do have more expectations on the security performance side of things. They don't want to expose data, right? So we definitely have lots of SMB customers using software for their own needs. We have also had some interest from enterprise clients, but the funny thing is that most of them do want to have their own data store within their organization, and they rather want to use these kinds of tools for the front end building, which is something right now we don't provide because we don't expose APIs or anything, and we don't have other than Airtable as a backend for our infrastructure. However, that might change also going forward. So once we kind of figure out all of the Airtable part, and then there is just huge demand on that side. Once we have that demand covered, we definitely will also look at that. But at the moment, it's just something that we don't offer. But there are lots of other, especially low-code tools that are targeting enterprise companies, and they're very, very technical as well. The downside of also giving out an API and working with bigger companies is just it naturally kind of tends to become more and more technical and kind of less focused on the users and UX side. At least that's kind of my feeling, and rather more on the technology in the backend side, which maybe at some point we would also dive into, but at the moment that hasn't been the focus.
Yeah, great. Well, I hope that answers your question, Ben. It was Ben that asked that. So thank you for that, Ben. And yeah, of course, if you want to interact with us today on this live stream, please do add your questions. It looks like we have another one actually from the audience. So yeah. So Steve asks, which other collaborators are you working with? Who else in the no code space are you doing some work with? Or are you starting to see some people as competitors? So I'm quite interested to hear your perspective on collaboration versus competition. So first of all, who are you collaborating with? And what are your views about competition in the space?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in terms of collaboration, I would say we do collaborate with lots of creators and no-code enthusiasts for sure. And we have seen a lot of our users, but also community members just building content and creating videos and educational content around software. And we definitely actively promote that, but also start engaging with them even more. In terms of creator companies or tools, we haven't really actively done that yet, but it's a really good point. That is something that definitely within the creator economy, it's still so new, right? It's still so fresh that it is something we are going to explore. But we have also not been in the market that long, so one by one. And then what was the other question regarding the second part?
So, what's your view on competition? So, lots of people talk about competition as in direct competitors. People talk about co-opetition, where you actually cooperate with your competitors so that you can get ahead. And other people believe in a purely collaborative approach and don't even really see competition. So, what does Mariam think about this?
Good question. I think it's yes and no kind of answer. I would say I think the no-code space is just so new, it's so fresh, and there's so many companies and products evolving and just trying out different angles, right? I do believe there is space for everyone. At least right now, it is the case because the demand is just so huge. And also I do see that most of the tools and the companies are really targeted towards different aspects. So some are just for building mobile applications, some are just building the front ends or the back ends. So there are so many different types of companies in the competition, in the overall competition, that even like sometimes it's really difficult for people to, when getting into no code, really figuring out what they need, which tool suits best for their needs. So for us in general, I think it's like we generally love to collaborate. We are looking forward to collaborate with lots of other no code tools as well, for sure. But one thing where we see the gap in the market is, especially looking at the web app development space, is really on one hand, there are tools which are really, really easy to use. However, you can just build basic static websites with those. And then on the other spectrum, there are tools which are still really powerful, but they are also really difficult and technical to use. So really where we see ourselves, which is a gap in the market where also we kind of decided to focus, is we want software to be really easy to use, simple to use, but at the same time powerful. So it kind of allows completely non-technical person without any even understanding of technical concepts build powerful full stack end-to-end applications. And yeah, in that regard, I would say I do see still a huge gap. And I think the one who is going to win is really going to be the one who actually transform these huge and difficult technical concepts into something really easy and something so kind of user friendly that people just build something without thinking and understanding that they actually built a really complex backend on the technology on the backend. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think just moving on from there to go a little bit deeper into collaborators, you say you have some idea of collaborating people. Can you share anyone that you are looking or hoping that you'll collaborate with? Maybe you can even give them a shout out and they can watch this and find you.
Yeah, for sure. There are so many people that we have seen just producing content around software. Like one of those is Doug, and then Max is doing a great job. Actually, Max also has built his entire platform on 100 Days of No Code on Software, and there are many others. I just right now on top of my head, I don't remember everyone's name, but there are just really lots of people who are every day building something, sharing with their communities, and also just spreading the word, but also on the other hand, really helping others to get into no code. And this is something what we really want to help ourselves with. And that's also one of the reasons, I guess you wanted to touch upon that. One of the reasons we just today launched the custom domains on the free plan, and just because we do really want to support our community and help produce 100 times more or even more creators and entrepreneurs and makers, so that they can start really their business. They can start, whether it's software or any other tool, they can just kickstart everything from scratch, build something, share it, and then really take it from there.
Yeah, I was quite amazed by that today. I have never seen any form of CMS or front end design, visual design tool that gives you a domain name, your own unique domain name, without spending a penny. I mean, that's literally changing the game. I mean, that's the bit that shocked me. But do you want to give us maybe, and also the listeners, some more examples of other feature updates, or what you've launched today?
Of course, yeah. So regarding the custom domain, we really like one thing we just noticed in our application within our users is there's just too many people and too many creators experimenting with different ideas, but at some point they just never launch. They just kind of step back, and it always stays there as as something running on subdomain, even though it might look really nice, really great. And then we just thought, why not to allow people, not to let everyone just put their custom domain on top and then launch it on Product Hunt or launch it within their communities, and then just see how it goes for them, right? To get traction, to get customers, because that kind of is one hurdle that they have to overcome in order to go to the next step. We just wanted to kind of make that as easy as possible. And in terms of other functionality, we have released a lot. I think I'll have to look at each of all of the features one by one. But the 2-3 big updates that we just released today is a new pricing, but related to that was the custom domain. But then on the pricing, on the features front, it's basically dynamic list details page, which means on the list details page right now, if you have a listing, let's say listing of different real estates, and then you click on specific list item, you are brought to a details page, which is dynamically taking all of the data from Airtable. Now you can add as many types of fields as you like. You can have headings, tags, like videos, audio. You can embed anything like Calendly, etc. You can embed Google Maps. You can have ratings. There have been so many people just asking for this rating thing. So you can allow people rate, and then all of the different types of fields. Basically, this allows the page to be really customizable and really tailored towards what you need for your specific business. And then the other things also is something that has been really requested by the customers, is allowing your pages, all of the details pages, be really SEO friendly, meaning you can have the URLs look like you want them to, because until recently it has been dynamically generated, and now you can just set something that you specifically want to be in the URL so that Google easily easily can find that and index it. And then the other interesting one is as well from hidden fields. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Should I go on?
No, I was just going to say, as a marketer, that SEO piece.
Exactly. So it's not only the slug,
just to warn everybody.
So yeah, exactly. It's on the marketing, from a marketing perspective, SEO is really important. So it's not just a custom URL slug, but we have put a link in the email. There is much more to that. So like titles, description, etc. And then the other part, which is also really important for people building real applications, is that you want sometimes to submit some data with the form back to your database. And let's say you're on a page for a specific category. However, you are filling out an item related to this category and just adding a new item. In this case, you might want to pass the category together with the item, the new created item, which is something you don't necessarily want to show to your users. So that's a hidden field that comes into play, and you can do that now as well. And yeah, we have some more blogs and some more templates for you to check out. So happy to share the link in the end in the chat.
Yeah, great. And I think, within this podcast and within the footage of the film after we've shown it on YouTube, we'll put some links there so people can go and research about these things. We've also had a really interesting question from Jamal, who asked, is there a limit to Nocode, do you believe? By that, I mean, do you expect people to have to write code at some point once the experimenting or analysis is done? He says it's an interesting topic because it's not one that he's really looked into much before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think Nocode isn't fit for everything, for sure. And, as the companies grow, they're definitely not going to rely on Nocode. So code is definitely going to be there for for long. I don't know if forever, but for long for sure. And the reason being just as the companies grow and the products become really custom and too specific, too much custom use cases, it just first of all might become expensive, but also it just wouldn't make sense to have all of these specific use cases covered in the no-code tool. First, because no-code tools might not be that flexible, but then second, also as the company grows, they don't necessarily want to rely on the entire, infrastructure, backend, data, everything on the no-code tool. So that is where also most of the companies, bigger companies, start using low-code tools because they partially cover to what they need, and then partially they allow also writing code. So I do believe that, however, almost 70% of all the applications would be possible to kind of build on no-code tools. And then the question is, once you have already built something, you have validated your ID, etc. Most of the people really, if we talk about creators and founders, right, entrepreneurs, most of the people even fail to reach a point where they have validated there is an idea, they have already customers, and they have something that people really want to buy. Until you reach that point, it's really just like no-code tools for sure would enable that. And especially also within companies, then it would enable to evaluate and test different hypotheses really quickly. And that is where really I see the most usage and really the most power for no-code tools. I don't see it necessarily for building your entire company and running on no-code tool for 10 years. Maybe at some point we can do that, but I don't think that's the biggest value that it brings to the masses and to the companies.
For sure, Mariam. I completely agree. Just, being from that marketing perspective, working with a lot of engineers, there's lots of times in which we want to change information on static websites. We want to change messaging. We want to change communications, or whether it be the color of a button or anything like that. And it's much easier to work with an engineering team when we have that sort of no code in the middle as well. So there's the, launching fast as a solo creator, but when you're working in teams within companies, it's how quickly can you iterate? And if a no code tool means you can iterate and pivot fast, companies that pivot fast can out pivot the competition. So I think there's definitely some value there. So before we sort of close down this podcast for today, so we're going to continue to talk a little bit on the YouTube live stream, but I'm going to cap the podcast at about 30 minutes. I really want to ask you a little bit more about the investment side, because I've been having some discussions on Twitter recently about, should creators be bootstrapping? Should creators be fundraising from angels or from VCs? Now, you guys have raised a massive $2.2 million recently, I believe, in a funding round. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what that experience was like. Why did you choose to do that, first of all?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I would say if I were a creator or I was starting a company, especially in a niche or a company that targets, so it doesn't necessarily target, some big amount of people or big market, then I would definitely go to fundraising route. Or there are so many also like other alternatives of VC money. So you definitely, at least even if you decide to really raise VC money, I would definitely recommend everyone to start with bootstrapping, to really build out a product, especially using no-code tools, get some customers, get some revenue, and really be at a stage where you can talk about you kind of feel confident yourself as well that you have built something that people want. And then at that point, make a decision whether it, for your type of product or your type of company, if it makes sense to fundraise or rather bootstrap. In our case, we have intentionally decided to fundraise just because, first of all, to build a no-code platform that really is is scaling, is performing, and is really like going to grow in terms of functionality, use cases, and really be ahead of the competition. We just need enormous amount of people and an effort and really time to do that. And for a bootstrap company, I believe that's just a bit harder, right? I'm not saying it's impossible. It definitely is possible, but for sure it's much harder rather than you have the funds and you just you can be much faster and much quicker. And for us, it really helps us to kind of establish the platform, build out the product. And like for us right now, it's just the 5% of what we imagine for software to be. And that basically with that money, we would be able to have full team. We would be able to build out the product, cover even more use cases, and expand and allow people and empower even more people, not just creators and small companies, but even beyond that. So that's really the way I think. So if I was a creator in these times, I would definitely just go ahead, have several of my companies, even maybe at some point built on software, and then yeah, just kind of build something that people want to buy and just run it on my own.
Great. So just to dive a little bit deeper in terms of the fundraising stuff, I mean, most of us have not a clue how you go about raising at all. You know, how do you meet these people? How do you get in front of them? How do you get that opportunity to actually pitch your idea? Can you share a little bit more information about that with us?
Yeah, sure. I think again, getting back, kind of talking about the bootstrapping and just kind of starting your business, growing and getting customers. That is something that also the reason you should do that is just because you, instead of you kind of running after investors, like investors will definitely notice you and they will definitely understand that you're like, if you're doing something that makes customers' life easier, they will definitely notice. So I would say, well, of course, we have been building our own network of investors. We have been just kind of within the startup ecosystem for the last year, but mostly once we have basically started really put out the product and we have gotten lots of customers, we just saw also, the no-code is really one of the hottest topics at the moment, and just not just because not because it's hype, but because it really solves a huge problem. And we have seen also a lot of kind of interest from investors, lots of people reaching out directly. And then I mean, I have to be honest and say that last year when we started the conversations, we actually weren't planning to fundraise at that moment. We were rather planning to do it this year, but it just happened in a way that we just got too much interest and there were lots of people reaching out. And we felt that after launching and after really spending some time with two people, only two co-founders, spending the time on building, marketing and doing all of the customer support, it's just like from an effort and resource perspective, it just doesn't scale and we wouldn't be able to go fast. And yeah, that's how we basically decided to fundraise earlier than we planned to.
And probably from a relationship perspective as well. I can't imagine that you want to be the only two people in your organization doing all of that work. It's so much work. So, good for you guys getting that fundraising sorted. And you mentioned about that monthly reoccurring revenue and those first customers. How did you get those first sort of 10, 50, 100 customers? What did you guys actually do to launch and get customers?
Yep. So we, until even launching, we have been actually building the product for about 1 year, not working full time on it, but we have been building it for quite a long time. And we have been also kind of preparing our own kind of building an audience, creating also our subscribers list. But also at some point, once we launched on Product Hunt, so we soft launch a bit earlier, and we kind of just put it in there and started testing ourselves in the first place, and then just asking our friends to kind of test it out. But after the Product Hunt launch, and we started really just becoming more active within the community and really engaging with our users. And I would say the first 10, 15 users that we got were mainly the people who have started beta testing our product. They have kind of helped with their feedback. They regularly, before Product Hunt launch even, they kind of already were using the product for 2 weeks or so. And then they basically became our first customers. And then some of the other customers also came after Product Hunt launch, just because kind of people started knowing about software, there is such tool just released, even though at the time it was just a website builder that was still really the early version of the product.
Awesome. So it was more about the people that were almost part of the journey with you, and that's where your customers came from.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So when we launched, I would say we had already an email list that we sent out our launch update to. It wasn't a big list by any means, but there were already people that have been actively interested in what's happening in software, when is it going to launch, etc.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for that, Mariam. We're going to end the podcast version of that now. I'm going to get you to say goodbye to me so that I can press stop, and then we'll just hang out for a little bit on the YouTube channel. Okay, so thank you so much for being on the podcast, Mariam.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks, Natalie, for the invite. It was great to be here.